07 in the total amount of $436,803.83.
All right, thank you. Any questions?
I just have a question. I was just looking over the, give me a second here, the fund
Okay.
that you had attached. And so my question is, first off, the interfund operating transfers, that's the special education budget.
Correct.
Essentially, correct?
It's the money that we transfer from Fund 10 to Fund 27 to cover their bills.
Got it. So when I look at the expense summary that's attached today, that's dated October 2022, I see $1,225,817 transferred. So I was just curious to take a look back at last year. Now, unfortunately, it's not apples for apples because we didn't have this report attached last year for the same date. But if you look to the next month, December, I'm looking at the Fund 10 expense summary from November of 2021, and it was, the transfer was $950,000. So, quick math, we're talking $275,000 difference this year versus last year, above last year, and we're talking a month earlier than last year. So I guess my question is, should we be concerned? I know that you know we had a big overage this past year in the special education budget, and we didn't, I don't think, realize that until late in the year. And I know that we did budget an additional $100,000, I think, this year than what we actually spent last year. But again, we're talking $250,000, $275,000 over, and we're a month earlier based on these two reports. So I guess my question to Mr. Musha and to yourself is, should we be concerned?
That's the budgeted figure. Has been no transfers made yet this year. The middle column is the one that would be the actual transfers itself. So you've got the
Gotcha.
budgeted figure,
Gotcha.
nothing's been transferred, and the unencumbered balance. So I haven't made any transfers yet to Fund 27.
That answers that, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Thank
that's
you.
good. Thanks.
My
Kind of
mistake.
scared me there for a second.
My mistake. I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, thank you. This moves us on to 5D, personnel hires, resignations, and leaves. So go ahead, Jack.
I don't want, excuse me, I don't want to get into it too much. I've shared the letter with all of you. I know Mrs. Kabish is she's having a tough time with it, and so am I. But she's going to move on. My recommendation is to approve the resignation of Nicole Kabish.
With a heavy heart, I do not, but I will because I do support her. She's an amazing teacher. It's a huge, huge loss for us, and yeah, I wish her the best. I thank her for everything she's brought to Bristol, and if it doesn't work, I hope she finds her way back to us.
Yeah, well said, Sue. So just want to, on behalf of the board, thank Mrs. Kabish for everything she's done for the school, and you know she's definitely going to be greatly missed. So, any other questions about consent items? Okay, I will make a motion to approve tonight's consent items, seeking a second. Okay. So all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, so motion carries 4-0. Number 6, President's Report. Don't have anything to report for this month. Number 7 is District Reports. So 7A A is our district administrator report.
Yeah, and I'll try to go as quickly as I can. You guys know how much I talk. First of all, I always like to start with celebrations. First and foremost, our girls B basketball team won the championship at the Riverview Comet Challenge, so congratulations. I know the coach pretty well, so we were able to watch that, and they did really well. So congratulate to them. The eighth grade or the A team ended up finishing fourth, and they played really well as well. Missing some key players because kids travel and do other things and do what they will. I also want to just give a shout out to Mr. Rob Clark. 50 people, including staff and students, went to the Wicked show yesterday, day before. I don't know. I'm sorry. Last Thursday. I don't know. I'm losing my dates here. But anyways, they went to Chicago, had a fun trip. Everybody was thrilled, and I'm proud that we were able to provide that opportunity. So thank you, Mr. Clark, for providing that opportunity for those kids. Saturday, again, and throughout the week this week, we have our literary book fair going on. I stopped in with my family on Saturday, and it was steady. It was the first time that we've ever tried that on a Saturday. Over $3,000 in sales on Saturday, which was really, really cool to hear. I haven't had an update since, but I just wanted to give again a shout out to our library staff for providing that opportunity for our families and having them come in and support everything Bristol. Again, another shout out, Addicted to Deals. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with Addicted to Deals, but they are kind of kitty corner and back in the industrial park. They gave me, just Corey, who's a neighbor of mine, gave me a text saying, would you guys want to help support, or would you be okay with us helping support you in a Christmas tree sale? And I said, yeah, let's do it. So they did. $1,800 later for the PTO last weekend. They sold, and I don't know the exact number of trees, but I also, again, wanted to give them a shout out for that they sold, I think, 150 or 160 some Christmas trees and donated 10% back to us. So again, thank you to Addicted to Deals, and yeah, very, very cool of them. And so we'll figure out what that $1,800 will go to, but we appreciate it, right? And then just a last quick shout out celebration, Bucks game tonight. Probably right now, or maybe in the next 15 or 20 minutes, our band is playing the national anthem on the middle of Fiserv Forum. So just wanted to wish them the best of luck and say go for it and make Bristol proud as well. So those are my celebrations. There's probably many, many more, but those were the ones that I came up with, and a lot of really, really good things going on here in the last month or so. Tony, if you could flip on the screen for me quickly, please. I gave you all just a flow chart, and I know that in my weekly emails that I send you all, I wanted to just kind of keep you informed as far as where I think we are as a strategic plan. So Ollie and I came up with this. We went through 3 meetings. You can see the 3 meetings on the left. The product has been completed. The next step for us was kind of step 2A. We decided that we didn't think we were ready to move forward. We just didn't feel as if the plan, and I shouldn't say move forward, that's not the right term. We didn't feel as if the process was complete. So we're going to continue to define. I think the next step is for the leadership to define the plan and then bring that to open session with the strategic planning team to gather more feedback, and then bring that back to the board and finally bring that to the public. So this is just something that I wanted to show you because I feel like as if that we're moving through the process, but we're just not there yet, if that makes sense. And before I go on, I guess I just ask, Stephen, I don't know if you feel, as far as a strategic plan member, if there's anything you'd like to add to that, or if there's anything that you have, or if there's anything that anybody else has any questions about.
So I guess this is the first I've heard of this, and I guess I'm a little bit confused. So the Bristol leadership team looked at what we thought we had finalized in our last meeting, meeting number 3, and the Bristol leadership team decided that it wasn't final.
So things like who's the point person,
Sure.
consensus within the group, those are probably the two biggest. For example, Carrie's in charge of the student, what is it? Academic achievement,
right,
student
right,
achievement portion.
Right.
Carrie was never a part of that discussion. So we felt as if, as a leadership team, we needed to define that more. We've never had the mission statement conversation. So those type of things, we just felt that needed to be defined better. Not that we're discluding anybody in the further of
Sure.
the process. Carrie's on 2 or 3, Tom's on 2 or 3, Ollie's on 2 or 3. I know you're a part of one, I'm a part of one. I just wanted to make sure that everybody that is a lead or that is in charge of those goals is okay with it, and we're moving forward with the best of our capabilities before we move forward, if that makes sense.
No, that's fair. No,
Yeah.
that's fair, and that makes sense. So the next step then would be the leadership team getting together once again, and you're saying draft the strategic planning document. Is that right? 2B? That's the next
Yeah,
step
and I
then,
don't,
really?
and maybe draft is not the right word, but it's just further defined.
Sure, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think that what we need to do is we need to say, yes, Carrie is in charge, but this person, and this person is also her co-lead, or those type of things.
No, that's fair. I mean, again, at the end of the day, we just want to get it right. And I know you and I had some offline conversations
Yep.
too, going into that last Saturday meeting, not sure whether or not we were going to be able to be where we wanted to be at the end of Saturday. And I think that question probably was in a lot of people's minds.
Exactly.
So I think that's fair, and I get it. So then the next step, and I guess I'm curious on timing with this then,
Yep.
would be the open session with the entire team, which would include everybody that was in meetings 1, 2, and 3.
Correct.
To review it and get feedback.
Exactly.
And so forth. Okay.
The difficult part about that is that we've already, we've asked for a pretty big commitment with the 3 meetings and all of that, and we're trying to define how that looks. So if that is a specific one day, hey, there's a couple hours or an hour or whatever it is, can you come give us the feedback? Or is this a breakout session for X amount of meetings talking about each of the goals that we set aside?
Sure.
We have not defined that yet.
Sure.
But I just wanted to be transparent with the group and the community listening tonight, saying that we weren't comfortable moving forward with the plan as is, and we need to do something about it.
Okay. So I don't know if anybody else has any questions. I mean, my next question, well, again, I have a question and concern about timing, I guess.
Sure.
I'm not sure what
Yep.
you've talked to up to this point with the leadership team and so forth. I mean, is this gonna, be able to be completed by the end of December, by,
December's tough because we have about 10 school days in December. We have not discussed that.
okay,
I think that we have it on our leadership team agenda for Tuesday, and we're going to work on it, and we'll get something out
okay,
as
Okay.
far as next steps are concerned.
okay. And you'll get next steps out to the entire strategic plan team?
Yep.
I mean,
And I
or
should have,
maybe you've already done that.
and I should have said this previously. I've met with several of them individually, just to get their feel for it.
Right.
And I think everybody is kind of in consensus as far as this is what needs to be done. So that's where we're going.
Okay, and then you're looking to review the final plan, and I note that you have one here, well, you have informational sessions, so I'm assuming that's a review and not an approval by the board, because I know we went back and forth on
Correct.
that at the last
Correct.
meeting, whether or not the board should be approving this or shouldn't be approving this.
Yep, and good news is that this is for, the 23-24 school year, so, we have a few months to work through it.
Okay. But you are looking at a review as opposed to an approval from the school board?
I think approval is actually a better word,
Okay. Okay.
once we get there.
Okay. Okay.
Both, is that a good answer? I'd like to hear feedback from the board, but I would also like the board's approval before we move forward.
Yeah, because I think, and again, I know we've talked offline about this a little bit. I mean, I think a typical strategic plan, and I'm talking with Ann, who facilitated this with us, this type of plan is typically actually driven by a school board, and for various reasons. I believe that wasn't necessarily the case with this. I think the school board wanted it to happen, but I don't know that the school board as a whole wanted to be necessarily a part of it as far as the details. And I don't want to speak for the other members of the school board, but I think that's how we got where we got.
Yeah, I don't know that that's typical, but I mean, I've been a part of many of these no, I shouldn't say many, a few of these processes, and I don't know that I would consider that typical. I think that the board might say that it needs to be done. Usually it's a district administrator and their team that drive the process.
Okay, okay, that's fair as well. And I guess then, I guess at the end of the day, I know that Carrie's gonna speak to student achievement and where we stand in her presentation later today. And obviously, a lot of her decisions going forward are gonna be driven by this strategic plan. And then at some point, the school board is going to, I don't mean to put this
Hold
the
me
wrong way,
accountable
but
for
hold
those
you
decisions.
accountable.
Exactly.
Hold you accountable.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
For all of these.
Of course.
For all of these goals.
And that's why we're not taking it lightly.
Right, right.
And that's why we're not taking it lightly.
Okay, okay. No,
Because
that's.
we
no,
want to
and
make
I-
sure that Carrie is on board
Yep,
with what she's
absolutely.
leading. And I'm on
Absolutely.
board with what I'm leading, and Tom's on board with what he's leading.
Perfect.
And Tony and Sue and everybody else
Yep.
is on board with what they're leading.
Yep.
And that's why we're just continuing to define
No.
the process.
Gotcha, okay,
Clarify.
okay,
Yeah.
okay. And again, I'm with you on that. I just wanted some clarifications
Yeah.
and for the rest of the board
course.
to understand kind of where we've
Yeah.
been and where we're going, see if they have any other
Sounds good.
questions. All right.
You bet.
Thanks.
Yeah. Any other questions regarding the strategic plan? Okay. And then there's just the last thing that I have as far as my report is concerned. And I don't even need to really get into this. You guys have the presentation. The only thing that I do want to share as far as a referendum update is that we are at 100% design. We got there today. And yeah, it's been a while. Monday night, we had our board meeting, the village board meeting, and they approved everything that we've presented. The only thing that I will say, and I'm not going to go through this entire presentation, but if you look at number 13 here, which is probably not, let me just, yeah. So this is probably the best slide that I can show here. Where is the plus button? Can you guys see that okay? So number 13 is the entrance from 203rd Avenue. The village had an, I don't know, what would you call it? They did not approve of the fact that our driveway was that close because of the speed limit and where the stop sign is. So if you have a right turn in, a left turn in, a stop sign, a left turn, and a right turn, all here in this area, it was too close. So basically what we did was we moved the entranceway here, and it's a gradual turn into the driveway, and it's a one-way. The village was good with that. The other portion that we've talked about is the water loop, which I know has been a controversial subject in in the area. And I don't want to get into this, but what we've decided is right here along 83rd Street that we are going to add a hydrant and fill in this water line here along 83rd Street with 12-inch main, and the village was good with that, and we're good with that. So we do. So the cost is approximately, well, we don't know, but if the entire loop, we were looking at probably $300,000 to $350,000. We're looking at probably $100,000 to $150,000 there. The good news is that we have contingency built in within our funding, and that's part of our contingency, so we can use that. And we can also start the project on time. We can fight the village. I personally, you guys know me, I'm not extremely happy about what's going on with all this stuff. But if I decide that we're going to fight this or we're going to take legal action with it, it's going to take probably months and months, and ultimately it's going to cost us not only legal fees but inflation, and we might not be able to start the project until next summer, which again is another cost and a hard thing to just take in general. So I don't think it's the end of the world. It's one of those deals where fire protection is always a premium. If we put a hydrant here, kind of where my cursor is, it allows us to get this direction for just in case any sort of bus fire or anything like that would ever happen, versus the village, what they wanted us to do originally was to loop, if you guys can follow my cursor, they wanted us to loop all the way through this way and connect the entire loop and then put fire hydrants throughout here. We've compromised. and we'll put one in here so that the code-wise, we can get anything from here back to here within code if we need to.
So will that fire hydrant be on our side, or will it be on the other side of the property, or on the road?
It will be right here on our side on the corner, right by the, I don't know what that is, sorry, I just, yeah, and I just clicked off of it, my apologies. Shoot.
On the corner there?
Our side.
Okay, okay.
Yep.
And then what's 18?
What am I doing here, Jack? 18. I see it, but we don't have a label there. That's a great question, Tina. I don't know why 18 is on there. I don't know what 18 is. I will get back to you on 18. I don't know. There is no 18 in my specific presentation, so that's a good catch. So yeah, the hydrant would be right in here, Tina.
So just to understand. And our engineers don't necessarily feel that it's necessary, but the village feels from a safety standpoint for the school that they'd prefer to see that fire hydrant there, from a safety standpoint, from a fire standpoint.
Correct.
Correct. And we compromised, went from what could have cost us $350,000 to a compromise that's going to cost us $150,000. Just
Correct.
round numbers. Okay. Okay. And we start on time.
And we
Gotcha.
start on time.
Okay.
Yep.
Excellent. All right.
Yeah, and so we went to the village commission, the village planning commission, a few weeks ago, and just gave them our plans, and their biggest concerns were this intersection, which actually isn't updated on these plans, because it's a gradual change here where 13 is, and then the fire loop. So we went back Monday, or well, I shouldn't say that. We met last week, Tuesday. The Village Planning Commission, their recommendation to us was that if we met with their engineers, as far as the village is concerned, and our engineers, and we figured something out, they would approve the plan. Our engineers met with their engineers, and this is the plan we came up with.
Good.
20 minutes later, Mr. Musha's done with his district administrator report.
Thank you, Jack. This moves us to 7B, Principals Report, so Ms. Houston's will present.
Oh, here, I'll unshare. Kick me off. There we go. Are you good?
Great. So I'm going to be providing some academic updates. So a couple of different pieces of information I'll be sharing will just be. It's on?
It's on.
Yeah. The 2021, 2022 forward data, so the forward testing from this past spring. I'll also share a little bit of information as far as the progress towards the school goals. Those are the goals that I shared with you guys in July. Wanted to give you an update as far as the ELA resource adoption and where that stands, and then an update as far as electives go. So, a lot of information, excuse me, in one place, but I wanted you to have a little bit of comparison information. So this, if you look across the table, it'll have each of the content areas that I was able to get data from our WISE- system. You will notice a little asterisk for social studies. There was a change in the standards for social studies. So what was assessed in the previous years up till 21, 22 is our different set of standards, which looks like it worked out in our benefit because we were able to hit those new standards to a very, very high degree. So what I'd like to really point out on this, and one of the things that I'm most excited about, is when you look at our ELA scores. Now, obviously, we're not at the highest point that we have been in the last 5 years, but since COVID, we've been seeing gains. But then with this ELA score, we went from 46.3, and this is proficient and advanced. So the 46.3 to the 53 for ELA is really impressive, considering in the 2021 school year, we did not assess the writing part in ELA, and last year we did. And writing has always been an area of opportunity for us, I'll say. I wouldn't say we're weak in it by any means, but it is the area where we have the most opportunities to grow. And with that added component of writing, we still saw significant gains in our ELA. So I was really glad to see that, and it's, all thanks to the hard work of our teachers and the students that were taking these assessments. So I thought you might be interested in seeing a comparison of Bristol with some of the other local schools. So I do have it broken down. These graphs do look a little strange because 1920 we did not test due to COVID. So you'll see the different colors there. The state is in purple, and Bristol is showing up in that blue color here. So we're sitting kind of in the middle of some of the area schools here right now. So that's for ELA. For math, we are right here. Yeah, so Brighton is, yes. And some things to remember too is that Brighton is also significantly a smaller school than Bristol is, probably half or a third of this. I'm not exactly sure.
Quarter of what we are. Yeah.
So, comparatively speaking, ELA is better than math compared to some of the other schools. Social studies, however, we outshine everyone, so we're doing really well with our social studies instruction. So that's pretty exciting to see. And then our science, again, we're just, we're below Paris and Brighton. But again, still making gains across the board in the different content areas. So wanted to give a little bit of update on our literacy goal. So like I said, I shared earlier in July about what our different goals were. We had different focuses at the different grade levels. So our early grades were focusing on foundational skills. Grades 3 through 5 really focusing on continuing to develop that love of literacy and get into writing, and then an increased focus in writing in the middle school. So some of the work that we've been doing towards our literacy goal, we've been our literacy interventionist, Ms. Stopich, has really worked very hard on developing a high-frequency word list for our primary grades, and that has been quite the endeavor to shift those practices around that. So I want to give a shout-out to her for all of her hard work. But we're also doing Haggerty, which is a phonemic awareness program for our early grades, something that we've been looking for a while. So we are doing that in all of our K-2 classrooms, which is exciting. I've been working with a team of 7 other educators in being a part of this Early Literacy Academy through CISA 6. It's a 2-year coaching program, and so we've been going to different coaching sessions as a team, learning a bunch of stuff and bringing what we're learning back to the school to continue to grow our literacy skills. And then writing in the middle grades. We've been piloting the Amplify ELA program, and we have seen significant growth in our students' writing skills. It is challenging our students more than they've ever been challenged before. I think the program is extremely rigorous, but we're... It is extremely rigorous. Yes, that's something that we have found. But the engagement rate of the students, the participation rate, I think Ms. McDonald said she had like 98% completion of writing assignments, which she's never seen anything like that in the past. And then just the growth in writing. So we're making some really great gains towards our literacy goals. And so looking forward to some of our assessment data when we take the MAP assessment in January. So that's where we are with literacy goal. Our math goal focuses on problem solving and developing perseverance through challenging tasks. So really shifting to that, taking what we're learning in math and applying it to real challenging problems. So there's a picture of what Mrs. Hubble has called perseverance problems. The kids are digging in. And so some of the different ways that we've been working towards this are Ms. Golm, our math interventionist, has been supporting teachers in integrating estimistries, which I believe that's actually what those 8th graders are working on in that picture. But then 3-act tasks and increased use of word problems in the math instruction. And then we will have some benchmark data through our trimester 1 assessment around that. Another really cool thing with those estimistries is some of the kids are really getting into it, and we have a group of 2nd graders that have actually written their own estimistries and will be teaching their classes using these really cool problems. So kids are getting into it, and it's really exciting to see them grappling with these challenging tasks. Update on the ELA resource adoption. So we have piloted 1 to 2 units. Some teachers, depends on where teachers are in their use of the resource, but using Amplify CKLA. CKLA is Core Knowledge and Language Arts, which is the K-5 part of the Amplify program, and Amplify ELA is the 6-8. So we've piloted 1 to 2 units so far. Our next steps are to continue with Amplify and to provide some increased teacher autonomy. We really had teachers follow the resource very strictly to begin with, but now we're allowing a little bit of flexibility now that they've gotten to know the resource a little bit better. We are also going to be introducing a pilot of another resource, Wonders, starting in January, and this came out of a discussion with the early literacy team, wanting to have another resource to be able to compare to. So still working out the details as far as what that looks like. And then the biggest part is really making sure that we're providing ongoing professional learning to anybody who's teaching literacy so that we can maximize whichever resource is selected. Because any of the resources we're looking at are truly high quality resources. And so if we have teachers who have really solid backgrounds in the skills, they can take whatever is put in front of them and make it even better. So really focusing on that professional learning piece of things. And then the electives, just to give you an update of how many students are in the different electives. In Spanish 7-8, we have 127 students taking that. And so some of them seem smaller just because they're offered to just one grade. 8th grade photography will have 36 students enrolled. Painting, grade 7, 43. Band 5-8, band is our big one, 158 students, and we have an amazing band program, which I'm sure we'll continue to see those high numbers. Sculpture has 29, visual journaling 30, personal fitness 41, and then theater arts has 77 students. So that's all I have for you. Do you have any questions for me? Yeah, go for it. And I can go back to different slides, yeah.
Also, first off, before I forget, MAPS testing.
Yes.
So are we doing that differently this year than we have in other years as far as
Yes.
timing?
Yes.
Okay.
So historically, we've done them fall, winter, spring. The instructional, or the interventionist and I, along with teacher leaders, kind of as we were looking at this, felt like doing MAP testing in the fall was redundant. Basically, when we looked at a historical view of what our fall scores were compared to what the scores the kids get in the spring to the fall, they were the same. So we were basically taking a lot of extra time to do an assessment that gave us the same data 2 times. So when we look at this year, we'll be able to look at the spring data to see the growth then from spring to winter, which is essentially the same as what it would look like fall to winter.
Did we have goals for 21, 22 as to where we wanted these numbers to be from a forward testing standpoint? I think we have goals from a MAPS testing.
Yes, we did
standpoint.
not have goals around the forward test. We had it all around the MAP data last year.
Okay. Going forward, will we have goals with this as well as the MAPS? Or, I mean, how do you see that working? Why are you asking?
Going forward.
Oh,
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So I work closely with our teacher leader team, and our goal is really always to make the goals as tangible and close to the work as possible. So yes, I think having those metrics down the road be a measure, I think that's important to include that. We do still have MAP data to help us measure that, so that we have multiple levels of measurement, having the kind of that big picture and then getting more closer to, or getting closer down to the classroom data. So in the future, yes, I'd like to see that. I think we've had limited test data and inconsistent test data too over the last couple of years for us to really project what a meaningful goal would be. So yes, I'd like to see that moving forward, but at this point, it's just with COVID and the inconsistency, I don't know if it would have made a lot of sense to kind of
Okay.
predict where to go.
Okay, and I mean, it's apparent, I mean, what you're keying into here with the forward testing is the advanced and the proficient.
Correct.
And that's what you're keying into. Now, this information just came out, I think, correct? Or at least it was just published by the DPI for 21, 22.
So
Maybe you
the,
had it earlier.
yeah, so
Okay, you did.
the
Okay.
school, what's on the WISE Dash system has been out for a little while at
Okay.
least. What hasn't been publicly released yet has been the school report cards. So that
Okay.
information is not yet public.
Yeah, so there's a difference.
Which just came out.
Oh, so that did just come
The
out,
report card
okay.
was literally yesterday.
Okay.
Right, okay.
The actual forward, the difference is the forward testing is not the school report card.
No, it's
a
incorporated,
portion,
it's
right?
incorporated
So there's
into it.
things like attendance, there's things like college and career ready, there's, all of those different things. But as far as the score is concerned,
Right.
the forward testing has been released.
Okay,
But the school report card was
Just-
literally just released.
okay. So I just pulled that up today because I
And
did.
there's an increase on there, so I didn't realize
Now
that
you
had
got
been
a chance.
released. I
Oh, yeah, I don't know
did.
if you got a chance to
I didn't
just-
know it was public now, so yeah, we
overall
can
score
celebrate
went-
that.
Yeah, so overall score went from 80.7 this year from 80.3
Yes.
last year, right? So that's a positive. I mean, it's confusing. A lot of the information to a layperson, at least to me, is confusing. I mean, I would love whether the board wants to sit down with you or individually. And again, I don't know how much you put into this scoreboard or scorecard or report card as far as each piece, but when you look at it and you look at achievement and you look at growth and the target group outcomes, again, it's somewhat confusing. This year, so for instance, like the growth, last year we were only in the 49th percentile. This year we're up to the 75th percentile. So that's a real positive, at least it seems.
Right.
Again, I don't understand it, all of it totally.
I'm going to be honest, how they figure out the school report card information is a mystery to me as well.
Okay.
So I tend to focus more on what we
The
can.
achievement and the
Yes,
forward
the
testing,
achievement,
which
forward
again
achievement.
is a
and- Mm-hmm.
big part of this.
Yeah, and the actual growth portion of that is they have specific groups and they look at improvement.
Yep.
So when you look at improvement, it's all over the board,
Sure.
right? So you could have 49% of kids improve or 75% of kids improve. That's a little bit, it's a tough one because we're thankful that 75% of our kids in our growth group
Well, we're in the 75th percentile,
Oh,
is what
gotcha.
I was
Okay.
mentioning.
Yeah,
75th
okay.
percentile compared to all the schools in Wisconsin. Last
Right.
year, we were only in 49%. So it seems like a good thing. I don't understand totally where they get all the information from,
No, we're
especially
improving.
when you start looking at the targeted growth. So the only thing that jumps out at me here real quick today, and sorry, I won't hold everybody up, but were the math scores, when you look at below basic. So when you look at below basic in particular in the math scores, so you look at below basic in ELA, if you look at 18-19 versus 21-22, all students went from 24% to 28% rounded. Ours went from 11.9% to 11.5%. So that was a nice jump for us, or an increase or an improvement in the below basic. Math scores, however, 18-19 below basic as a state was at 25.4%, went up to 30.1%. So essentially that's an 18.5% increase, which isn't good if you look at it from that perspective. Unfortunately, our school went from 12.5% in 18-19 up to 16.1% in below basic, which is actually almost a 30% increase in the percentage of students that are below basic. So I guess my question is, and I'm sure you've seen this information. I don't know, and I'd be curious, how we're addressing that and how we're attacking that to improve that. I mean, it's great to see who's advanced and who's proficient, but obviously we don't want to leave a lot of kids behind. And we're leaving, 16% behind in math right now. So.
So one of the things with the test scores is we test kids in grades 3 and up. So one of the things that we've implemented recently is the Bridges in Math program. It's the new math curriculum in primary grades, and those kiddos will actually have their first year of forward testing this year. So it'll be interesting to see what the results look like as we've implemented that program. They only had 1 year with the curriculum, so but that change in curriculum was an attempt to help take kids out of that below basic group. So that is definitely one thing that we've been working on. And then, Janet Golm, our math interventionist, has been really working closely with the teachers at those early grades and all grades really to help support that growth. So, it's kind of a waiting game right now to see where we are with that, but I haven't had a chance to really look at the projections for our MAP score. The MAP does offer some projections as far as how kids will perform on the state assessment. So when we get to January, I'll be able to get some projections as far as how we might do based on what those MAP scores are.
Great. I was curious if we were addressing it in any
It's,
fashion.
I mean, the answer is we've updated our curriculum and added on math RTI intervention specialist and RTI aides to try to help those kids that you're talking about since 2018-19.
All right, thank you, Carrie, for all the information. Greatly appreciated. Number 8, public comments. No? All right. He just moved, so we're good. We're good. All right, number 9 is discussion items. So 9A, notice of school board election processes and dates. So go ahead, Jack.
Yep, just a quick one here. You guys all have the notice. I just want to make sure in public that I announce the fact that the school board election process and dates, December 1st, 2022 is the earliest date for circulation of nomination papers. December 23rd is the deadline for incumbents to file notice of non-candidacy. We only have one person, and if she wants to or not want to run, we need to, if we don't want to run, we have to know by December 23rd. January 3rd, 5 p.m., the candidate deadline for filing all documents if you're running. February 21st, 2023 will be the spring primary election if we have more than Gene, 3? Yep, thank you. And then April 4th will be the actual election. So not a lot of discussion, but I just felt like I needed to say that publicly, and I will say it again next month, just so that everybody knows those are what the dates are if you're interested in running for the board.
All right, thank you. 9B is the 2022-2023 budget update. Susan?
I gave you a couple of handouts. The first one, employee health-related insurance costs. The insurance came through. We originally were told to budget for 15% increase. They came through the health insurance with a 5.5% increase, which we thought was pretty good. The dental insurance, which has historically had no increase, needed a 3% increase due to 106% loss ratio. Our HSA and HRAs did not change. Our cash in lieu did not change. So this whole sheet, I had budgeted a little more than 10% originally. We're actually going to have a budgeted savings of almost $53,000 overall. Now, you're looking at this, and it's a 13% increase from last year. And the reason for the increase is because we've had some people moving from single coverage to family coverage. We've had people moving from waiving the insurance to taking the insurance. And it depends if they're a teacher or support staff, because when they waive, it's $6,500 compared to $2,000. And then if the employee is a 9-month or a 12-month, that's how the budget is calculating how much is owed. Because 9-month employees have 4 months of last year's rate and 8 months of this year's rate. 12-month employees have 6 months of last year's, 6 months of this year's. So it's a little bit different. We're not going to feel the whole impact until next year. So it's not as bad as we thought it would be. That's, I thought, was good. And also the other change is we gained one retiree with health benefits, but we're dropping 2, one that won't get dropped until January. So we're cutting that down a little bit. There'll be probably 3 retirees on for at least another year. And then on the bottom of it, I put the WPS proposal on what the total increase they felt would be with our average monthly premiums, with the dental and the medical, is somewhere around $63,000, $64,000. So not too bad. And you have to remember that the district pays 92% and the employees pay 8% of those premiums for health, and 12% they pay for dental. So last Friday, I went to...
Can I just ask a quick
Okay, go
question?
ahead. I'm sorry.
So again, you lost me there at the end a little bit. So our budgeted savings, when you look at the whole shebang,
Mm-hmm.
you had budgeted a 15% increase. The budgeted savings is still $52,954.
Yes.
Okay, all right, all right, got it, thanks.
Okay, last Friday, I attended the Baird Budget Forecast Seminar. In there, they build the budget forecast model for Bristol after I give them all the data that we have, and then they grab data from DPI, anything that's online, and any of the assumptions that are being made by legislators or Governor Evers' proposals or whatnot. Where does everybody really think we're going to go with the biennial budget? And then we create different scenarios. And it's a fun program. You could build scenarios till the cows come home. And for me, it's fun, because that's what I enjoy doing. But I think Steve would enjoy it, playing around with the different scenarios. So I did build a couple of them, the basic assumptions, just going with what we have now, what historically has happened. And you can see that we immediately start eating into the fund balance by 1.2 million, almost 1.3 million next year, and it doesn't get any better. Then I went with that's the first scenario on this sheet, the big sheet.
And so that was,
That's a basic assumption of having everything as is. Some of the business managers in the state of Wisconsin believe that the legislators aren't going to do anything, which is
Okay.
kind of scary.
okay.
So then I went with a $250 per pupil increase, which the majority of business managers around the state think that the legislature is going to propose. That still has us in trouble. We end up with almost a 1.1 million deficit next year. So some people are being optimistic, about 20% of the business managers. And they said, we're going to have absolutely a 400 per pupil increase. So that's the next scenario down there on the bottom. We're still almost $1 million deficit. So then, was it Monday? Monday. Governor Evers and Speaker Voss were interviewed by the news, and Speaker Voss said, we will give Governor Evers everything he wants if he agrees to open up all of the vouchers. Governor Evers responded, we will talk about negotiating. So I don't know if that's a go or if it's not a go, and there's a whole bunch of things in Governor Evers' proposal. So I threw a couple, this is the big one, I threw a couple of his proposals in there. The increasing reimbursement for special ed, which is sorely needed in every single district in the state, because I've never heard of a district spending less than $1 million on special ed, having to make that transfer. And that's something that you mentioned earlier, that our transfer got larger as the years have gone by. That's common with every school district. So that would make a huge impact. So I ran this scenario just to see where this would put us, and to my surprise, it's only the next 3 years that we would be in trouble. After that, after it gets to a 60% transfer reimbursement, we are actually doing okay. So if I wanted to hang my hat on what's causing our budget deficit, I would say it's the special ed transfer. And there's not a whole lot that we can do about not taking care of the students.
So just so, excuse me. So right now, we're around 30% as far as reciprocation from the state as far as special education is concerned. Evers' plan would say next year it would go to 45%, and the following year it would go to 60%. He's also suggesting that there's a portion that each school would get as far as social emotional learning and mental health, which would be a flat fee, which I'm not exactly sure how it would be. It would be 6 figures for us, that we would be able to then use as far as we would be able to control those funds locally versus having them already identified as what we needed. For instance, we could pay for a school psychologist, counselor, whatever, so that that money then would be able to be transferred, or I wouldn't say transferred, but not used in other ways. That's part of his budget plan. The other budget part of that is just a per pupil amount increase, which he really has kind of kept close to his vest. But those are his 3 big things. We're not sure if it'll get approved, won't get approved, or they'll go back and start from scratch. So as we work through this, I know $1 million sounds like a lot of money, because it is a lot of money, but our options are to either well, I guess there's only 2 options.
Yeah, A, do nothing.
And hope that we get the increases or get some sort of increases, and we depend on our fund balance moving forward. Or B, we go to operational referendum in April and ask our taxpayers to help us out, which 78% of the districts have done throughout the state so far. So I'm not trying to be short, but literally those are our two options.
And when Lisa from Baird was here last month, she mentioned if we don't need the funds, we don't have to levy for them. We could include that in the referendum question. We can do that in the presentations. I have known of school districts that actually rebated the money back to the taxpayers that they didn't need. So just information for you going forward. Any questions?
Sure. So if we look at this sheet. So our Fund 10 revenues, the current year are $10,603,000. With a $400 per pupil increase, our Fund 10 revenues go down to $9,704,000. So you might have already addressed that, but can you explain that to me?
There's a lot of different moving parts in this. So it's not only the amounts that we're losing, the ESSER funding. We do have those included this year. We still have CARES Act money, hundreds of thousands of dollars of that. So we're going to be losing those funds. I'd have to go into the details of all of the revenues and expenditures. Like I said, I think you would be most interested in looking at the budget model. I think it would be of great interest for you to see what's actually included in it.
No, I would definitely like to sit down with you and do that, because $400 per pupil, just do a quick calculation, is, an additional $320,000, and yet we're looking at the Fund 10, and I get the ESSER funds and so forth going away.
We have the 700,000 that we budgeted for the TID residual as well.
But that doesn't go into Fund 10
Yes, it does.
as a revenue.
Yes, this year.
Oh, and this year,
But there's nothing for next year. It's a one-time payment.
gotcha. Okay. So, I know you said you didn't want to be short, but you were fairly short. And so I guess, my point to your, this is what we do or this is what we not do. I mean, the other thing that we can do is cut expenses.
Correct.
That would be option number 3, which I know,
Correct.
Yeah, okay. So I guess next steps, I mean, personally, I'd love to get together with you and understand this better. But next steps as far as you coming to the board between now and all of us getting together between now and January, I think, 24th, when we have to make this decision, whether to go to an operating referendum. I mean, what are you proposing as next steps between now and then, if any?
Yeah, good question. I think December, we have our regular board meeting, and just to be honest, from my perspective, I was waiting for Sue to go through this workshop to just kind of see how real it was, if that makes sense, and it's getting real for all of us here. I'll have a plan for December within our 3 options. I think nobody, when we talked as a board, and this was before, or just, I guess, as I was hired as a district administrator, and before that, we had discussed, the different things that we were going to use our ESSER funding for. And I think we would all agree that what we've used our ESSER funding for is beyond valuable to our school. And we knew that going into it, we just didn't have the money to do it. The inner, my inner, I don't know, soul, heart thinks that we're going to be okay. Because I just think that the legislation has to do something, and I think that we'll be okay. I just don't know that we can depend on that.
Okay, so your soul says potentially we'll be okay without an operating referendum, but we can't depend on that, just to clarify what you're saying. And I feel the same way. I mean, when I hear that we have a $5 billion surplus in Wisconsin, and I hear the DPI has asked for $2.5 billion more for public funding, and Evers has asked for, I think, at least $2 million, and I do hear Evers and Voss talking, and potentially, you know, I would hope that $2 billion, if Evers and Voss could negotiate and, about the charter schools and so forth and so on, that would end up coming out to much more than $400 per student, we would hope. So I guess I agree, but we have to plan
Correct.
as if that's not going to be the case.
And that,
So
and just to be, I guess again, not to be short, but to be blunt and to the point, I will present those plans, and that'll be a board decision as far as what direction we want to go. I will, if I'm being honest, I don't have a recommendation at this point. I think about it every day. I don't know what we're going to do, but I'm hoping that everything will work out. And I will give you those options in December, and we'll make that decision in January.
Okay, but teachers' contracts need to be finalized by the end of December, is that correct?
If we have any sort of non-renewal, they have to be brought up in January.
January 1st or by the end of January?
End of
or
January.
By the end of January?
Yeah.
Okay. And again, not that I personally want to go that direction. At the same time, I think that us as a board, and, we have to take a look at what the taxpayers are looking at. And, when I see that we're spending over $1 million more in salaries and benefits this year than we were in 1920, that's a lot of money. And again, I don't want to go backwards, but I think we need to take a close look at that. Special education has gone up $400 and some thousand in the same time frame. And again, I don't want to take away from any of those students, but again, it's something that we have to look at. And I know we, again, talked offline. I know you're looking at that. You have a spreadsheet set up, I believe, where you're looking at those expenses closely on a monthly basis to hopefully, I shouldn't say rein those in, to make sure that they're being spent judiciously.
I think it would be in the best interest of the district if I don't foresee anybody having a non-renewal notice in January. I think that it would be in the best interest of the district to go into the fund balance and attempt referendum before we make cuts at this point. And that's just me being me and making my recommendation now. I don't feel as if we've done enough background or have truly I'll just leave it at that. I don't think that anybody should have a non-renewal notice in January at this point. We have enough money in our fund balance, and if we need to go to referendum, we go to referendum. If it fails, then we look at making cuts. That's my recommendation at this point.
So, I talked about option 3 being a cut in expenses, but you're not totally ruling that out, but you are from a salary and benefit standpoint.
For this school year, yes.
Okay. Okay. Okay, again, I don't know what the rest of the board thinks. I just think that it's our responsibility as the school board to take a look at this from every angle that we can. And I think, you know, other schools all over the nation and all over Wisconsin, and I understand the operating referendum and that we're in the minority as far as not having an operating referendum. But a lot of schools have had to, you know, take a look, at least take a look at the cuts. And you know, I will be sending, no doubt, an email requesting certain information to be shared with the board as far as where we stood in 18-19 as far as staff count, you know, by grade and so forth and so on, versus where we stand now, as well as, you know, staffing within the principal's office, staffing within the administration's office, and so forth and so on. And I'm not saying, again, that we don't need all of that and it's not beneficial. I'm sure it's beneficial, but I don't think we'd be doing our due diligence as a board not to ask for that type of information, in that we're looking to go to an operating referendum the year after we went to a building referendum and ask the taxpayers for an additional $600,000, $800,000, $1 million, or whatever we're looking at potentially as an operating referendum. So I'll pass that along in an email form to potentially have a special board meeting, or to review that in December, if that's fair. Fair. So, okay. All right, good. All right, thank you.
All right. 9C, 2022-23 open enrollment update.
The only thing that I just wanted, again, to be transparent with the board and the community and just share this chart with you. As you can see, we have, I believe it's 126 open enrollees in and 45 open enrollees out. We always meet with this in January to make our official recommendations. And I know we talked a little bit about it last month and at our policy meeting and things like that about whether or not, you know, we want to accept siblings and all those kind of things. So literally just putting this on your radar. If you had questions for me tonight, I'm okay with that. The other thing is that we do have our caps set. And when our caps are set, that means that, I don't want to say my hands are tied, but I follow your rules. So when you guys have set those caps, just being completely transparent again, we have 3 or 4 8th grade students who are, well, I don't know them personally, but I'm not allowed to, I have not let them in, just because our caps are where they are, and our 8th grade is the biggest class in the history of Bristol, literally. So those types of things are just something that we should probably look at and discuss. I don't know that there's anything that we want to do. I just know that if I want to make a decision as far as increasing those sizes or allowing somebody to come in who's on a waiting list or is above the cap, if you will, I need your permission to do that. So this is just more informational than anything, and I just kind of wanted to open it up for discussion as if there was anything that you guys wanted to ask or know of me at this point. That's all.
Where's homeschool on this? Is that on the, like, if somebody in the Bristol community did homeschooling versus coming to school?
They're not considered open enrolled, they're considered home. They're not considered open enrolled, they're considered homeschooled.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's not anywhere on, that's not calculated at all?
We can calculate that, and we do have homeschooled students. It's just not a part of open enrollment.
Okay, that's what I didn't know that. That's what I'm asking. Thank you.
So what you're, basically with your comment, so you're saying that if the board felt it was okay, we would, these students who are on a waiting list, like if we approved those students, then we would take them?
Yes, to answer your question. So we
could potentially, like, any time if, throughout the school year.
yes, so there, and I don't have, and Gene, I don't know, I'm sorry to put you on the spot, I don't know what our list looks like as far as numbers, as how many, yeah.
There would be 2, and then 1 with the special needs.
I'm just asking as far as what the numbers look like already, like what their actual, like, we have 100 and,
Oh, for in 8th grade?
yes.
3, I think it is.
So, for instance, we have, the board has set up 25 class size limit, right? And the reason I brought this to discussion is because if there are students who are looking to open enroll, who are above that limit, I want your approval for that. I don't want to have that on me because, one, I don't think it's fair to the teachers and the other kids in the grade. 2, I don't want that omniscient ability, if you will, to run the district. But 3, I think there should be some sort of option for the board to allow that number to be exceeded, if that makes sense.
Leaves that door open.
It leaves the door open, but I don't feel comfortable doing that myself, and that's why I've denied all of the applicants that have come in, because you guys set a limit at 25, and we're over the limit of 25. And I don't want to go there, but I also know that this is probably the first time in history, that I know of at least, that we're over that limit. So just something, again, for all of us to think about. And yes, Adam, to answer your question, if the board wanted to make a motion, either at any point, to increase that limit to allow me to allow those kids to enroll here at Bristol, I could do that, or we could do that. But again, being transparent, I just wanted to let you guys know that that is an option, and this is where we stand.
Well, what about the teachers? I mean, they're the ones that are going to be teaching these kids over that cap of 25. So I'd want to hear from them to what that would put on them.
Agreed.
Before we would even consider.
And I
you know, exceeding
1000% agree with you, Sue. I
Okay.
just, again, the community has asked me to bring this to your attention. It opens a can of worms, because all of a sudden now you have, you go to, I don't know what you said, 103, 108? 101. So we're one student over at this point. We were more than that earlier in the year, much more than that. So we do have a couple students who have left us. But I guess where does it stop at that point, right? Like, what's the line? Then do we just increase the class size from 25 to 26, so that then 100 and, whatever it would be, 104 becomes the new total? But at this point, I just wanted to be, again, transparent to let you know that I haven't let any of those kids in, because I've held a hard line and would need board approval for that to move forward.
Like, if we did, let's hypothetically say would say, go ahead, you can raise the cap, we'd probably be looking at, you'd have to let all those kids in, or would it be like, maybe it's a scenario where you would present it to the board and say, this is a student's
Story.
situation. It's up to the board to allow this person in. If you say no, then we don't. If you say yes, then we do.
Yeah, and there's always, and it's tough because there's, the open enrollment window is obviously closed, so this would be a special case for all of the kids involved. We have a 0 open enrollment, special needs. We've decided that in January, and unless there's a sibling, which we just talked about in policy recently. But when you talk about open enrollment exceptions, there are some students that have either bullying instances, or they're looking at just getting into a new school because, and I don't know all the things off the top of my head, and I apologize for that, but you have to kind of check the boxes in order to have the open enrollment special instance. And we have a few of those that I've denied because of the fact that our grade levels are too big.
Yeah, those were the ones that I was thinking of, is like the ones where, it's physical abuse or verbal abuse at whatever particular school, that, they got to get out of that school because essentially it's damaging to that kid. So I guess that's kind of the type of exception that I would be considering. But I mean, obviously that's my opinion, but I don't know how anybody else feels about it.
Well, again, I'm with what the teachers feel comfortable, I mean, we could say all day long, we don't sit here and teach them. So their input to me is 100% of my decision. I don't want the classes to get too big that some parents pull their kids out because it's just too big. And I can't answer. I mean, the teachers can answer what is sustainable and what they feel they can teach and make a difference. I don't know what that number would be. So I would lean on the staff for that.
And I guess we can handle it on an individual basis as well. I just personally don't know the process to do that, so I wanted to bring that to the board. And just know that, I mean, we're at 101 students, so it wouldn't be 15 kids, it would be 2, or 3, or whatever it might be as far as the waiting list is concerned. But what I'm hearing from the board at this point is to bring that to the 8th grade teachers and to see where they're at, and bring a report back and fill you guys in. Does that seem fair?
Very fair.
Okay.
So just to clarify one thing, so the January meeting is when we decide the caps, is that correct? Correct. So between now and then, say the December meeting, you'll let us know what the caps were last year, or what? I don't know what the caps were, and I'd like to know that before January.
You bet, and I can send that. It's
Okay.
just I believe there's 4 questions that we have to go through that just literally say grade level cap, yes or no to special education students open enrolling, yes or no to this, yes or no to that, and then it just becomes a matter of you guys picking that number. And to be quite honest, we've kind of just gone through it and just checked the boxes off in years past because we haven't, and I mean, I don't necessarily bring budget into it again, but it's something to think about if there's kids that want to come to Bristol and they can't because the class sizes aren't big enough. And that I just truly believe that that's something that is up to the board to decide as representatives of the community. And I think that in this special instance of 8th grade, I will, like I said, speak to the teachers and bring back a recommendation from them.
I think it would be great when we do discuss that, to get some sort of input from the teachers at all grade levels. Like, obviously kindergarten or first grade, well, forget it, I mean, you've got a bunch of little ones. So it's different as, you get to the higher grades. So I think it's important to hear from the teachers what they feel is going to be, what do you want to say it, most beneficial for the kids.
Correct.
The students.
And I'm not in any way or shape or form asking you guys to increase this, and increase all the way through or anything like that. I don't want that to come off that way. I just want you guys to be informed of the fact that, there's a lot of kids that want to come to Bristol, and that's, I guess, a good thing. So, we just need to think about that moving forward.
All right, thanks, Jack. I shared it with you. I had it on my drive, so it's got it. Actually, it's the meeting minutes from Gene. Gene has it all broken down, so you should have that. All right.
We never have to worry about that.
That's not happening.
We know where you live.
Ever.
All right. Any other questions for Jack on discussion items? Okay. Time is now 7:29 PM. I'll make a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting, seeking a second.
I'll second.
All right. Any last minute questions, discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Thank you to everyone who attended tonight's meeting, in person and virtual. So as always, you can contact us on our Bristol School Board webpage. Thanks.